Right, so Huawei, these guys have come a long way from where they were a few years back, making horrendous budget phones. But that strategy has worked for them because apparently enough people have bought their cheap phones that now they can afford to do proper R&D for their flagships. And the latest iteration of that is the P3 Pro. Last year they had a pretty solid camera for their phones, the P20 and the Mate 20. It's pretty standard this year to have, actually for past couple of years, everyone's had a telephoto, a 2x zoom lens on the back of their phones. Well, these guys thought that wasn't enough, thought maybe it was mediocre, so they decided to give us a 5x zoom, and they've achieved this using a periscope. They've literally slapped the periscope into the back of their phone, and if you digitally zoom, you could achieve a 50x zoom. And they've also added OIS to the sensor, so your usually zoomed in shots are pretty shaky, but with OIS, the first images coming from this shows that it's quite stable and quite usable. Use cases for 50x zoom, almost next to none, unless you work for like the CIA or NSA or some of the sort. In my book, this is all you need to know about the phone, but we do have to talk about the rest of the stuff because it is pretty sweet. First up, the main shooter on the phone is a 40 megapixel f1.8 sensor with an RYG filter. Instead of the usual RGB cameras, they use red, yellow, and green instead. Apparently that allows them to get more light into the sensor, and probably night shot photos of this with this phone should be pretty epic. They have a second lens, it's a wide angle lens at 20 megapixels f2.2. Then thirdly, you have a time of flight sensor. This is basically used just for depth information. It'll just help with better background blur for your portrait photos. And then you have, of course, that insane periscope camera. Last year phones were generally pretty boring. The same recipe, a metal frame, glass back and front, give it a notch. And at the beginning of the year, a question on a lot of people's minds, admittedly including my own, was, have we hit the ceiling in terms of smartphone innovation? Because realistically, how thin could you make your smartphone? How much thinner could you make the bezels? Those were all questions. This year has already shown us that that's definitely not the case. There's always going to be some form of innovation, some new trend, and this year there's no shortage of that sort of thing. The main takeaway from all this is that we've entered a sort of TikTok phase. No, I'm not talking about TikTok, the Vine replacement app. I'm talking about TikTok like a clock, where we have 1 year where a new feature is debuted, and then the next year they refine that before tossing that out and coming up with a new innovation. Eventually, we're going to hit a point where the incremental upgrades and the innovations are going to slow down a bit, but I don't think we'll ever reach a point where there's no more innovation in smartphones. And that's the most reassuring thought that all this has given me. But hey, Huawei, man, these guys are not messing about. They're really putting the pressure on the rest of the field, the S10s of the world and the iPhones of the world. iPhone's still ahead of the rest, considerably, even with the obscene prices. But yeah, this just puts on the pressure. And always when there's this level of pressure on the big players, they end up giving us something good. So even if you don't care about this phone, just know it's gone a long way to improving your phone of choice. Either way, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Hit like if you liked it, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you on Monday.